The meeting will be audio recorded. Please switch off mobiles or turn them onto silent. Members, please be upstanding to receive the Chairman, the Council, Chairman's Chaplain and the Acting Managing Director.
Going to start by giving you a line from Scripture from evening prayer this evening, Psalm 10, verse 18. Lord, you will hear the desire of the poor. You will incline your ear to the fullness of their heart, to give justice to the orphan and oppressed, so that people are no longer driven in terror from the land. So let us pray. Father God, as we gather this evening, we're aware that there are still some who are in terror in our land because of coronavirus. We lift to you those in our district who are clinically vulnerable, those concerns for loved ones, those frightened by the thought of life returning to normal. As national legal restrictions lift, we give thanks for all who have worked so hard locally in our NHS and volunteering to help others. We give thanks for all council officials and employees who've enabled services to continue in difficult times. And Almighty God, from whom comes every good and perfect gift, we pray that this meeting will be conducted in a spirit of justice, truth, wisdom and charity. We pray that, mindful of their responsibility and of the needs of those they serve, each councillor and officer may use their influence in this meeting to promote the build-up of community and neighbourhood. Help them seek the way of love and peace through him who is the Prince of Peace, our Saviour Jesus Christ. Amen.
I'd like to thank the Reverend Nick Rowan for your time. You are welcome to stay, or if you do have other duties, please take your leave. Thank you. Members, please take your seats and can everyone hear me okay? No? Is that any better? Good evening, members, and welcome to this meeting of the full council. Can you hear me okay? Members, there are 4 microphones that are on the tables for use during the meeting. When I invite you to speak, please wait until there is a microphone in front of you before speaking, as the microphones are needed for the hearing loop and for the audio recording. Please, where possible, assist in passing microphones to each other and use the hand gel and antibacterial wipes on the tables if you do touch the microphones. Members, voting will be done on a show of hands, in line with the Constitution. I will ask for a show of hands for and then against recommendations, and then for abstaining. Given the size of this room and the numbers of us present, can I please ask that you put your hand up decisively high in the air so that we can be clearly seen, and leave it up until I ask you to lower it. Members, we're now going to move on to agenda item number 1, apologies for absence. Apologies I have received are from Councillor Carter, Councillor Mrs Carter, Councillor Smith, who is currently having to self-isolate, and Councillor Webb, and Councillor Mrs Mason. Are there any other apologies? Councillor Mrs Rowe?
Thank you, Chair. Councillor June Lumley.
Thank you, Councillor. Any other? Okay, thank you, members. We'll now move. Yes, just one moment. Okay, moving on to agenda item 2. Minutes of the meeting held on the 18th of May 2021. Members, are you happy for me to sign the minutes of the annual council meeting held on the 18th of May? Is that agreed, members? Thank you. Councillor Wilkinson? Oh,
Sorry, thank you, Chairman. I wasn't ignoring you. Chairman, just on a point of order, I have had a conversation with the Democratic Services regarding the minutes that were circulated in the fact that there was an error because they don't comply with the Constitution because there's no voting numbers on there. I was told that was going to be amended. If it has been amended, I haven't received a copy of it because I haven't received it, so I can't confirm if that's correct. I don't know if any other member has, but the ones I've got are the ones that were sent out at the end of May, which we can't agree on.
thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. These have been amended, thank you. Just before we continue, members, it is very hot tonight, and if you wish to remove your jackets for your comfort, please do so. Okay, so members, are we in agreement with the minutes that have been amended? Agreed? Thank you. Moving on to agenda item 2. We've just done that, sorry. Agenda item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman. I have non-pecuniary interest on item 12 by virtue of being a Raleigh Town Councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Councillor Mr Dray.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest, again in item number 12, CCTV, as a member for Wheatley Ward on Raleigh Town Council.
Thank you, Councillor Dray. Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'd like to give a non-pecuniary interest on item 12 as being a member of the Rochester Parish Council.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Sparing.
Thank you, Chairman. Non-pecuniary interest, item number 12, as being a member of Raleigh Town Council.
Thank you. Councillor Payne. Thank you. Councillor Bob Milne.
Yes, Chairman. I declare a non-pecuniary interest as a member of Raleigh Town Council for item 12.
Thank you. Councillor Ward. Councillor Ward.
Yes, just to declare a non-pecuniary interest, item 12, as a member of Raleigh Town Council.
Thank you. Councillor Cannell. Councillor Cannell, do you have your hand up?
Thank you, Chair. As all other members, item 12, non-pecuniary interest by way of being a Raleigh Town Councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Newport.
Item 12, non-pecuniary interest as a member of Raleigh Town Council.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Weston. Councillor FD.
Same again, item 12, Rochford Parish Council, non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you, Councillor FD. Councillor Goodin.
Non-pecuniary interest for item 12 is, by the way, the fact I'm a member of Rochford Parish Council.
Thank you. Councillor Hazelwood.
Non-pecuniary interest, I'm a member of Hockley Parish Council.
Sorry, I didn't.
Councillor McPherson.
Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. Non-pecuniary interest, item 12, as a member of Rochford Parish Council.
Thank you.
Councillor Stanley.
Councillor Stanley, please.
Item 12, Chairman, non-pecuniary interest.
Thank you. Okay, members, before we continue with the main business of the meeting, I would like to move a motion without notice in line with the Council Procedure Rule 14C to take item 13, the Joint Strategic Partnership, next, as we have visitors present for this item and they may wish to leave the meeting early. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Steptoe. Can those that are for please vote so? Thank you, members. You can now lower your hands. Can those against please raise their hands right up and keep them up while the officers count them, and don't lower them until I ask you to do so. And finally, those who wish to abstain, please raise... You can lower your hand. Apologies. Finally, can those members wishing to abstain please raise your hands? Thank you, members. That is 25 for, 1 against and 5 abstain. That motion is carried. So, agenda item 13, the Joint Strategic Partnership. I will ask the leader of the council to introduce the report, and the council's acting managing director will then take us through a presentation. The leader will then conclude his report. Councillor, Mr. Wood.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think I'm fortunate enough to have one of those voices which may reach around the room. Can you hear me all right at the back? Very well. Good. Thank you, Councillor Eames. You want the record of it, you, Councillor Eames, play that. Madam Chairman. I'm very pleased to bring this report before members this evening. Following the retirement of the Managing Director on the 31st of October 2020, a paper was brought to Council in December 2020. It was agreed in that paper that in conjunction with the Acting Managing Director and on behalf of the Executive, I, as leader, would initially explore the opportunity to establish a shared management arrangement with another local authority. As set out and detailed in paragraph 2.3, it made sense at that time to look at the 5 other authorities in South Essex. At a very early stage, it became apparent from discussions that Brentwood Borough Council were also in a stage where they had an appetite at the broad possibility of some sort of sharing services with another authority or a partnership arrangement. The red line for both authorities was to protect and preserve individual councils' sovereignty, whilst at the same time creating a strong strategic partnership with no shared boundary. The arrangement we're proposing tonight achieves just that. At this point, I will ask the Acting Managing Director to present some slides to us which will set out the vision in a bit more detail. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Chairman, if I may remain seated just to take through these slides. Thank you.
Yes, go for it.
Members, as Councillor Wootton has explained, this began as a conversation between 2 authorities that were looking for mutual opportunities for improvement. And this slide sets out the journey that Brentwood Borough Council undertook to bring them to this point. And they had been having discussions with other authorities. But it coincided with the discussions with us and our journey to find a new head of paid service and for the vacant managing director post. The preferred partners we both agreed should be of the same tier within a 30-mile radius, i.e. within South Essex, to ensure... I beg your pardon. Councillor Stanley, can you hear me now? Okay, thank you. I will just go back one slide. So the partnership opportunities for Brentwood Borough Council are as set out on the slide. The opportunity to work with us because of the vacant managing director post and a willingness to explore a partnership approach is what coincided with our journey to this point, as Councillor Wootton has outlined. The preferred partners, we are both within the same tier, second tier authorities. We're both members of South Essex, which means that so far as compatibility is concerned, we have the same vision and outlook, the same agenda, and an equality of bargaining power. This slide demonstrates a little bit more around the similarities of scale, geography and economy, which makes this a proposed partnership of equals. Our revenue budgets are broadly similar, our geographies and demographics similarly so. Although, as you can see, our governance and our governance cycles are very different. I think this is probably the most important slide that members should focus on, is what the partnership could be and most certainly what it is not. And I think it is important to remember that this is not a devolution or a cessation of any autonomy or sovereignty on part of the council. It is a mechanism to ensure that the partnership can create resilience and to share services where required, to create economies of scale, to move money spent on back office services in particular to front-line delivery, and to strengthen our relationships in terms of how we operate across South Essex and across the county more generally. The important thing is, in terms of autonomy, the council remains a sovereign body in its own right, and this council and you as elected members will retain authority in respect of all matters relating to this council. The proposal, as per the report, is that there is an interim joint chief executive managing director, and that is the incumbent chief executive officer at Brentwood Borough Council, Jonathan Stevenson, and that he would be appointed for a period of 6 months to take up this joint role across both authorities. Members, that is the subject of this paper, and that is the to which the recommendation relates. Working alongside Jonathan would be myself and my counterpart, Steve Summers, who is the Strategic Director at Brentwood Borough Council. Members, that would operate under existing delegations to the Head of Paid Service, so there is no need for a specific recommendation in respect of the Strategic Director roles. This slide essentially just sets out the proposed next steps with the decision today and then a period of time for development of an overall business case for the Strategic Alliance to be brought forward, heading towards a decision to proceed on a more formal basis towards the end of the year, and for paperwork to be brought back and a report to be brought back to Council for that decision to be made. Members, the recommendation is for a 6-month arrangement, notwithstanding that we hope to complete matters within that timescale. Firstly, because that allows work to be done and a report to be held by the end of the year, including any slippage, and to enable synchronisation of the reporting cycles for both authorities. And of course also to allow handover at the end of February if a decision is taken not to proceed with this relationship at the end of this calendar year. Members, that's the end of the presentation. If I can hand back to Councillor Wootton.
Thank you to the Acting Managing Director, Angela Hutchings. Madam Chairman, if I move to the second part of my introduction, my proposal this evening. Moving forward, the proposal is set out in paragraph 3.4, which reads, the proposal is to agree to share a joint chief executive managing director for an initial 6-month period to develop an initial feasibility study, business case and proposals for future development of shared services. To understand the management and political aspirations, needs and priorities of each council, to be able to determine the most effective partnership opportunities appropriate for both councils moving forward. Consideration of the options for the sharing model going forward and the necessary governance arrangements required, and to produce a timetable for implementation with milestones and estimated financial efficiency savings. Paragraphs 3.5 to 3.9 then go on to set out the mechanics of how that would be achieved. At that point, Madam Chairman, with your agreement, and before I read out and go on to the recommendations in the report, I'm happy to take any questions or hear any comments before I move to the recommendations.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Councillor Wilkinson.
Chairman. I'm not sure if this question is best for the leader or the acting managing director. One of the slides has got, I think it's the previous one to the one that's up there at the moment, it uses the terminology interim and joint strategic director, and twice actually. Would I be right in thinking that if we were to go ahead with this, Angela would effectively go back to her previous role, purely for Rochford, and Steve Summers would purely for Brentwood? What is the idea of the joint side of things? Because are we now sharing strategic directors as well as the CEO? Does that make sense? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. I'm happy to answer that question. The proposal is that the strategic director roles will be shared across both organisations to provide resilience and also to provide capacity. As I mentioned in my presentation, there's no requirement for a recommendation to that effect because that delegation can be done under the delegations which exist in respect of the Head of Paid Service in any event. So it would be around both myself and Steve Summers working across both authorities.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy?
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Wilkinson answered my first question. That's been answered very well. Thank you. I'm a little disappointed in the way this has come forward to the council. I understand that it's perfectly legitimate to do so in this way. I would have rather seen it go through the Chief Officer Appointment Committee, even though I know we're not appointing a Chief Officer in the normal way with this. Is the agreement specifically to appoint Jonathan Stevenson, or is it to appoint the Chief Executive Officer of Brentwood Borough Council? Because the agreement is with Brentwood Borough Council, and I just want to make sure that he is named in that agreement as the first question. The second concern is that I think Andrew Hutchins did mention this or briefly, is that politically the governance is very different. Brentwood do operate a committee system and we operate a cabinet system. Obviously, as I'm sure many members here would know, that I would have no objection to going to a committee system, but I doubt if that's the intention of the leader of this council at this time. Can the leader just comment on how he feels how he feels Jonathan Stevenson will be able to, not cope, that's the wrong word, but to understand the differences in working with the different systems? They are very different in how they work and how decisions are made. They're really the last two questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Wotton?
Madam Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Hoy. If I take your first question, the Chief Officer Appointments Committee, that is not the appropriate body at this stage. And I think you sort of alluded to that. You made the point and then sort of answered your own question in that respect, but you did make the point. In respect of the organisation of this council, it will remain as a cabinet system.
Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Councillor Wilson, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the report, there is on page 13.5, recommendation 9.1 brackets 5, there is a recommendation that the monitoring officer be given delegated authority to make any required changes to the Constitution. And I've got a concern over this because within the body of the report, there is no rationale why that should take place. And from my perspective, it means there's no oversight of this. And I would have thought it would have been better for this to come back to council to be ratified. And I would perhaps prefer to see the word draft in there rather than to make the required changes. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. Are you going to?
Councillor Wilson. Yes, no, any changes that come forward from this decision will naturally be of factual changes, which as council, you will give me delegated authority to change. Any following a report that's to come back to council later on this year, any further changes then of factual nature will again be for council to delegate to myself as the monitoring officer to change.
Thank you. Councillor Milne, please.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a question for the leader and for our executive. Basically, apart from the saving of monies in salary in the report, how do we perceive what the other advantages will be of employing Mr. Stevenson, in that there obviously are difficulties getting top-end CEOs at the right money to actually give us that sort of extra edge? So have we looked at that in our selection process, as it were, for Brentwood? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. Councillor Wotton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think you also, Councillor Milne, sort of answered your own question in the sense that if you go back to the options that were presented to council in the December meeting, it was quite a clear mandate to go and look at shared arrangements. Now, within the paper, it alludes to the benefits of shared arrangements and the challenges that authorities are facing all over the country, financial, the opportunities that partnerships actually present, which actually in modern times are actually stronger when you work in partnership with people rather than when you work singularly. But I can't move away from the fact that the market is a competitive place, and to seek the managing director stroke chief executive of the calibre that we would require is certainly a challenge for authorities of our size.
Thank you, Councillor Orton. I'll take Councillor Eaves and then Councillor Eaves, then Councillor Foster.
Thank you, Chair. I've got 3 questions come points. Section 6.3 in the report does actually talk about the employment of this particular situation. The direct employment is with Brentwood. The concern with that is if that there is any reason why that employment falls apart, how does Rochford stand? Because obviously we are not directly employing him, and if he falls out of favour with Brentwood, where does that leave us? That's one. I did ask on email for the practical arrangements as to how this would work. Would it be that Jonathan would be available on certain times, certain days of the week to Rochford? And in the event of that being the case, if he was then not in the area when, or not dedicated to the area when something important came up that required his actual attention, how would that work? This is the machinery of it rather than the person. And the other thing is that in the recommendations, we have got, all the recommendations are looking to ways of going forward, but I think that we need to actually have part of the recommendations there to review how the 6 months have gone, to be able to actually understand if this is going to be positive for Rochford in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Orton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Eaves, you're doing what is a natural temptation to do, is you're actually moving into the interim arrangements while we actually sort out exactly the points that you've made. The direct employment situation is a question that will be answered over while the interim arrangements are sorted out. It is perhaps a little bit much to expect on the night that we're introducing this report to be able to have all those very detailed but very fair answers. So the answer is that will be taken account of in the interim period that we're talking about in this report. In terms of availability, well, I guess it depends on the person, doesn't it, really, how well they make themselves available. But I do think we have got to get to a situation where we can't just expect everyone always to be on the end of a phone, and the appropriateness of the inquiry that we are making. There is a bit of a temptation, I think, for all councillors to want to expect assistant directors or the managing director to always be on the end of the telephone the moment that they request them to be there. All I would say is my early meetings with Jonathan Stevenson, I can assure you on a 24/7 basis, you will have absolutely no problem getting hold of him. And in terms of, sorry, your last point was, Councillor Eaves? Thank you, Councillor Eaves. I think that's really what the interim report is all about, to do just that. And to bring that back at the end of the, we're hoping it will be even sooner than 6 months, but we've said 6 months, and certainly your point is noted. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take Councillor Foster and then Councillor Connell, and I think we've had a good discussion there.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. As we all know, all councils have an obligation to provide services to our communities as effectively and efficiently as possible. Bringing fresh eyes into an organisation can bring new ideas and drive improvement. Sharing a chief executive / managing director and partnering with a council with similar interests, scale and economy as this proposal suggests, indeed could identify and stimulate new ideas for the Rochford District Council area without eroding our sovereignty. I see this as a no-risk proposition. In 6 months' time, a business case and detailed plans will be provided, and that will be the decision point for the long-term future. To my mind, the proposal makes great sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Foster. Councillor Connell.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question's actually been answered by a combination of Councillor Eaves and Councillor Orton. Thank you.
Councillor Orton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm just conscious that the sign language between the Managing Director and myself broke down on the second question that Councillor Hoy asked. And if you can remember or repeat that question, I think we ought to afford the courtesy of giving you a response, Councillor Hoy. Have you got your second question? Because I answered the first and the third. So I haven't got I believe you asked the question to as long as that was covered. Good, okay, all right. I did it without even trying, so there we are. Right, okay. Just before I move to the recommendations, Madam Chairman, I do at this point just want to publicly pay tribute to Angela Hutchings, who not only has worked so constructively and very positively in this little exercise, working with me principally on working with potential partners and arriving at a solution, but also her sterling work to lead and support Rochford District Council for this past 9 months through what has clearly been one of the most difficult times of our history. It will go down in history for all sorts of reasons, but Angela has kept the ship very steady and I really appreciate both the personal support that she's given to me, but I also think that all members should be very appreciative of the support that her and her team have provided to us through turbulent times. I think I'll leave it there. The other thing is that whilst he is keeping a low profile this evening, it would be extremely discourteous of me not to acknowledge that Jonathan Stevenson is sitting in the crowd at the back. And I think you just ought to stand, Jonathan, so that we can all put our eyes on him. But there is Jonathan coming to observe our meeting. Welcome, Jonathan, albeit that there will be an occasion to hopefully more formally welcome you in the future. But thank you for attending our meeting, Jonathan. And also, if I may, the leader of Brentwood Council, Chris Hossack, was in a meeting at 6 o'clock. The difficulty with physical meetings is that you actually have to travel to get to the next meeting. So he attended a meeting in Brentwood at 6, and I'm sure broke no speed limits in coming down to Rochford. So if I can ask you, Councillor Chris Hossack, if you kindly stand, and we did see you sneak in, but you did it very quietly, but thank you very much for joining us this evening. Thank you. So if I may, Madam Chairman, I'll move on. I think you'd probably like me to read out all the recommendations.
Yes, please.
It is proposed that Council resolves that Jonathan Stevenson be appointed as Joint Chief Executive / Managing Director for both authorities and designated as Head of Paid Service for Rochford District Council with effect from the 1st of August 2021, subject to legal agreement and resolution by Brentwood Borough Council on 28th of July 2021. Number 2, that the acting managing director and the assistant director, legal and democratic, in consultation with the leader of the council, engages with Brentwood Borough Council and enters into an agreement under section 113 of the Local Government Act 1972 to establish a joint chief executive and head of paid service for Brentwood Borough Council and Rochford District Council for an initial period of 6 months from the 1st of August 2021. And number 3, that the interim joint chief executive, JS, and the 2 strategic directors, in consultation with the leader and deputy leaders of each council, to undertake the creation of a feasibility study to explore further shared and partnership opportunities with Brentwood Borough Council. A further report with the proposals will be brought back to Council for consideration by the end of 2021. And number 4, that a maximum of £20,000 be allocated from general reserves to fund 50% of the costs required to undertake the feasibility study and provide additional programme resources. Brentwood Borough Council intends, subject to council agreement, to also commit £20,000 of resources to undertake this work. Number 5, that the monitoring officer be given delegated authority to make any required changes to the Constitution. And finally, number 6, that any designated head of paid service is the proper officer under section 270 in brackets 3 of the Local Government Act 1972. I would like to propose those, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Do you have a seconder? Councillor, Mrs. Wright.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like to second recommendations 1 to 6.
Thank you. Members, are you happy to vote for these recommendations en bloc? I would assume your agreement unless you raise your hands. Agreed? Okay. Those members that are for this recommendation, please raise your hands nice and high. Ooh. I just did. You can lower your hands now. Members, those that are against, please raise your hands. No? Are there any members that would like to abstain, please? You can lower your hands now, thank you, members. Okay. Members, that's 25 for, none against, and 8 abstain. So that is carried. Thank you. Members, we will now move on to agenda item number 4. And that is announcements from the chairman, leader or head of paid services. Any of our guests, if you wish to leave, you are welcome to do so now. In the meantime, as chairman, I would like to make a short announcement. Just to let you know that I've been busy since the start of my chairmanship role. Firstly, with a visit to East Essex Hackspace, which is my chosen charity, based at Clements Hall Pavilion in Hawkwell. The committee members at Hackspace were pleased to hear that I've pledged my support via fundraising for Hackspace this municipal year. In addition, the chairman for REMAP, which is an associated charity, invited me to be an advocate, highlighting the fantastic work they do when using Hackspace facilities by making bespoke apparatus or equipment for people with disabilities. I have visited a few charities and voluntary organisations, including Junior Park Run, Corinthians Football Association for an award ceremony, a charity event for the Avro Vulcan at Southend Airport, which is totally reliant on volunteers and fundraising. Also, the Armed Forces services held at St Mary's Church, Prittlewell, was well attended, along with the Mayor of Southend Council and councillors, as well as the armed services. More recently, I was delighted to be invited to the NHS 73rd birthday and Thanksgiving service, a joint ceremony with Southend Borough Council. Furthermore, I considered it an honour to raise the NHS flag with the opportunity to express my gratitude and recognition for our NHS heroes. My fundraising continues with the Chairman's forthcoming garden party being held on the 5th of August at the Lawns at Rochford. I welcome and value everyone's support, and I will continue to update members at each meeting. Thank you. Agenda item 5, public questions and members' questions on notice. Members, there is a question from Councillor Wilkinson to the portfolio holder for governance. Councillor Wilkinson, would you like to read out your question?
Thank you, Chair. Could the portfolio holder for governance please give this council reassurance that she has put procedures in place to ensure that the number of votes cast in any council meeting correspond with the number of members present at the meeting, and explain to this council what those procedures are? We have seen examples recently where the numbers have not been correct, yet the chairman has moved the meeting on without this discrepancy being dealt with, which can be seen in the minutes which we've seen. In addition, can she also give the members reassurance that she has also put a procedure in place to give clarity to members when voting at annual council for outside bodies where there is more than one position? The last annual council, Chairman, the last annual council saw a great deal of confusion where members did not know how many votes they could cast, and the monitoring officer's explanation at the time sadly did not assist. Members need clarity moving forward so that we all know how many times we can vote on a particular subject. Thank you.
Councillor Mrs Rowe.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councillor Wilkinson, for your two questions. The rules governing meetings of local authorities are partly found in legislation, partly in standing orders, and also under common law.
Excuse me, Councillor Miss Rowe.
There are already procedures in place, and these have been clarified and explained previously on numerous occasions. The Local Government Act 1972 sets out that matters are decided by a majority of members present and voting. In an ordinary vote, the members do not necessarily always equate to the number of members entitled to vote. This is because a member may vote for a motion, against a motion, they may abstain, or they may choose not to vote at all. If a member chooses not to vote, that is their prerogative. The officers will only count votes for, against, or abstain. The situation is different for a recorded vote because each member's name is called and they are required to state their vote as for, against, or abstain. In a recent training session, the same question was posed to the trainer, who was an external trainer from the Association of Democratic Services, and the advice they gave supported the monitoring officer's advice that the number of votes may not always equate to the number of members present unless it is a recorded vote. In relation to voting on appointments, Rule 17.6 of the Constitution applies where there is one position which only one person can fill, but there are several nominees. The Constitution is silent where there are multiple positions and a multiple number of nominees. It has been by convention that the Council deals with such nominations by voting for each nominee, and the nominees with the most votes fill the positions. Members vote for each nominee as the name is called out, and those with the highest number of votes will be selected onto the outside bodies, as is the case with many other authorities. Each nominee is taken as a separate vote, therefore members can vote each time for each nominee. This is permissible in law, and it reflects the custom and practice of this council for many years. Having conducted my own review, it appears that 27 members out of 39 are very clear and content on this procedure. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs Rowe. Okay. I think we can move on to the next agenda item 6, business from the last meeting. Supplementary. Councillor Mr Wilkinson, do you have any further questions?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Councillor Rowe. Thank you for reading the Constitution to us. With respect, it's not what I asked. And saying 27 members voted for something out of 39 is not what I asked either. I'm not going to get an answer to my question, but thank you. I won't waste any more of your time. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Would you like to answer that, Councillor Mrs Rowe?
Thank you, Chairman. My response earlier was full and concise, and I now consider this matter closed. I have nothing further to add. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Agenda item 6, business from the last meeting. Members, does anyone have any questions relating to the business from the council meeting held on the 23rd of February 2021? Okay. Agenda item 7. To note the minutes of the executive and committee meetings held between the period of 10th of February 2021 to the 6th of July 2021. Are these noted, members? Noted. Thank you. Agenda item 8, to consider any reports from the executive and committees to the council. Item 8.1, report of the review committee, annual report. Councillor Mrs McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm already on my feet. As Vice Chairman of the current Review Committee and as member of the Review Committee for the 2020-21 year, I am presenting this annual report of the work of the Review Committee for the 2021 year to the full Council. This report was recommended to full Council by the Review Committee on the 13th of April, unanimously by the Review Committee. On behalf of the Review Committee, may I thank last year's Chairman, Councillor Jamie Burton, and Vice Chairman, Councillor Dave Sparing, for their sterling work, especially in guiding this committee throughout the pandemic and keeping us to our work plan and focused. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs McPherson. Are there any questions, members? Councillor Newport.
Thank you for presenting this report to Council. I did have one question of the report, and I hope this is appropriate to ask this question, but this was on the emergency planning aspect of the report. I wondered if the scope of the report on emergency planning was only on RDC's emergency planning. The reason I asked this question was because as someone that's used the emergency phone number on a number of times, I was quite alarmed to read here that when it was tested by RDC that it was satisfactory, in line with the requirements of the service. The number of times that I've called it, the lines failed to, on one occasion, be answered, on another occasion, failed to help at all. When eventually I was able to speak with the acting managing director about the sanctuary housing problem, the acting managing director had to, and the leader of the council actually had to implement their own solution to the problem. So my question really is...
Councillor, Mr Newport, sorry, we're not discussing it, we're just receiving the report. Thank
I just
you.
wanted to ask a question on that aspect of the report. I just wanted to find out if the scope of the report went to the partners as well that provide services to the council.
Thank you, Mr Newport.
To receive the report. Councillor Newport, your questions, I can take that outside of this meeting. I've noted your question. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hoy.
I believe there's little point in me speaking, given the answer to the previous...
Thank you. Okay, we have one recommendation set out at the paragraph 2.1 on page 8.1.1 of the report, that Council receives the annual report. Is that received, members? Thank you. Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman. Just for clarity, Councillor Mr Hoy, if you don't mind me saying, you were on the review committee that recommended this report to full council.
Thank you, Councillor McPherson.
Thank you, Chairman.
Chairman, if I may, in response to Councillor Hoy's question, this is not a decision. The report has already been agreed by the review committee. We are simply asking members to receive the report this evening.
Moving on to item 8.2, report of the review committee, the Treasury Management Annual Review 2021 to 22. Sorry, 20 to 21. My apologies there.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Treasury Management Annual Review 2021, this item of business was referred to the Review Committee on the 6th of July this year, with a recommendation to note the Council's Treasury Management Annual Review 2020 to 2021. There's an extract attached to this report of the key elements from the Assistant Director Resources, which is appended. The portfolio holder for finance, although he's not here, he did make a very valid point, which this is a factual report and it's a snapshot of the work and the position of our finances at the end of the financial year. There was some discussion during the review committee meeting, and that was around the varying rates of interest, but those have been answered and the information has been provided by the Assistant Director Resources. There was also some discussion about the contract that we have with our advisors, Link Asset, and that's been cleared up that they will be reviewed and re-tendered in the coming year. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wilson. So we have one recommendation to set out in paragraph 2.1 on page 8.2.1 of the report, that the contents of the Treasury Management Report be noted. Is that noted, members? Noted. Thank you. Item 8.3, report of the Planning Policy Committee. The new local plan, Spatial Options, Regulation 18, consultation paper. Members, I will ask the Chairman of the Planning Policy Committee, Councillor Sperrin, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. Members, if you've had the opportunity to read all these pages, you will read there is a considerable amount of evidence being submitted by Mr. Goodman and his team on this department in relation to our ongoing new local plan. The work involved, as you can see, is extensive and has taken up considerable amounts of time. I would like to congratulate officers on what they've produced so far and the way we are progressing with our new local plan. Having said that, we have discussed all three papers that are under your consideration this evening, both at the working group and at the Planning Policy Committee, and I can quite happily itemise the comments that we've asked to be resolved in due course if that's required. However, during the course of the planning policy, it became evident that concerns, despite officers' best efforts as to how we would make sure that all residents received the necessary notifications and request opportunities for their input, that there could have been some members of our community that fall, for want of a better phrase, through the gap and wouldn't receive or be advised of any of this correspondence. I took this on board and have discussed this situation with the administration, and obviously there is no way that the administration wants any of our residents to not be fully engaged with this opportunity, and I therefore, with your permission, Chairman, would propose, in addition to the other recommendations that be resolved this evening, that I submit a motion that £45,000 be allocated from earmarked reserves to cover the cost of sending out a consultation leaflet to all households within the district on the spatial options consultation paper, and as necessary consultation leaflets for potentially up to two further significant local plan consultation papers. Thank you, Chairman. If you wish me to read through the items to be resolved by this committee, I will. Otherwise, if members are all happy, I'll leave it to you, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sperrin. Do we have a seconder for that? Councillor Ward, thank you. Would you like to read those out for me, please, Councillor Sperrin?
Certainly, Chairman. The first one is in relation to the spatial options regulation consultation paper, and it resolves that the special options consultation document set out in Appendix A be consulted for a period of 6 weeks, that the consultation is carried out in accordance with the consultation strategy set out in Appendix 1C. And lastly, on that aspect, Chairman, the authority be delegated to the Assistant Director, Place and Environment in consultation with the portfolio holder for strategic planning to make minor textual and cosmetic changes to the consultation document to ensure that it is factually accurate and accessible at all time for the consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Sperrin. Councillor Reeves, do you have a question?
Thank you, Chair. Very quiet. Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we'll get there in the end. There were some questions I wondered if we could ask. You didn't ask if we had any questions on the motion before it was put forward. There has been some information that has come to light. Councillor Hoy has questioned Essex County Highways, and it would appear as though Essex County Highways have thrown us on this matter into complete disarray again. Members may not be aware, because this is very fresh news, Essex County Highways have commissioned work on the highways structure and future for the south of Essex. That has only just been brought up. Now, Councillor Hoy has the email from Essex Highways. As I say, he's only just got that today. The problem is that they are talking about the possibility of garden villages and various other infrastructure points that would come up in the south of Essex. Now, if that is the case, that throws our whole strategic plan into disarray. Because how can you put a consultation out there when you don't know what the outcome is going to be? Because when the infrastructure changes, then the areas considered for development are going to change with it. It's like asking someone to dinner and saying, we're going to give you food. Do you like it? We don't know what we're commenting on. The whole of this, the new area plan, because of what Essex Highways have now put out, is in question. Because it may not, once they've actually decided on what they're bringing forward, it may well be that the proposals for areas for development may change dramatically. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Eaves. Councillor Sperrin.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Eaves, this is on the work that we've done up till now. If things change in the future, then that will go into any future discussions we have and will be taken into consideration. And if we have to change plans during the course of the next year or so because of developments, that will be an ongoing saga. But we are giving a report on what we were able to achieve up until now with the information that we were able, that was placed in front of us up until our last meeting, which was on the 23rd of June.
Thank you. Councillor Hoy.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a couple of things. I think this is quite premature, given what Councillor Eaves has just said. I have emailed Councillor Scott at Essex County Council asking what the plans for infrastructure planning and assessment were within Essex, and he has replied saying that there is work being commissioned, particularly with regard to Rochford, which he regards as a special place, which we all know it is. However, also in the report on page 8.3.2, in paragraph 3.2, so I'm trying to stare at the writing's very small and I haven't made it big enough. It does say that the council was planning to commission an infrastructure delivery plan, viability assessment and other evidence within the next couple of months, which would identify the infrastructure required. This was in answer, I can't remember if Councillor Foster also asked this question, was concerned about this area as well, because it seems we're asking residents to make a decision and we're consulting them on the basis of plans which we haven't yet decided and which aren't yet in place. That response I've just read out at our last meeting of the Planning Policy Committee was around the judgment that we're making the failure of infrastructure as low, whereas some of us argued that it should be at least medium or high, given that we haven't even done an assessment yet. On that basis, and I'm aware that Councillor Sperring knew that I had some doubts as well at the meeting, which he said was fair enough to bring up at this meeting, even though I voted for it to come to this meeting. It does give me concern. Councillor Ward, I believe, has also stated that he believes it should be infrastructure first, and he has echoed concerns around infrastructure in our meetings. I was voted in on the platform of infrastructure first, that we should be looking at the infrastructure before anything else, because we know we have failing infrastructure in this area. On that basis, I'm really struck. I cannot support this tonight, because I think although in some ways we are very delayed. I was arguing that this should be coming forward about 5 years ago as an early review of the local plan. However, I think we're premature, given that a big bit of work on infrastructure is about to take place, which could change our plans completely. On the basis of what's happened with the first local plan, the current local plan, once this first stage is passed, we find ourselves in a situation where areas have been chosen, if not specific sites, areas have been chosen which we are then tied to, regardless of what else may change. And that's what happened before. And that's where we had the problem around the Ashington Road development, SER8. In addition, we were promised the members of the committee the interactive map so we could see how well it worked on different platforms, but I've not seen a sign of that as either, so I really cannot support this tonight. I really think we should defer this at the moment, but I'm not sure I can move a deferment because we're still debating an amendment, I believe, as an additional motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst I have every sympathy with and gratitude, in fact, for the recognition that some members of our community were missed out from this consultation, and it's quite right that we do what we can to encompass them all. First of all, I'm a bit concerned that this has come to Council as a motion without notice. I don't know why that wasn't added to the agenda, but I'm sure it was legal. I'm sure the monitoring officer was consulted with. But moreover, having heard what Councillor Eaves and Councillor Hoy have had to say, I wasn't aware of the email Councillor Hoy had received. My thought process, therefore, is, well, if we're going to go ahead with this consultation by spending an additional £45,000, how far down the line are we going to have to spend an additional £45,000 to do it again because the first consultation wasn't right? So I think it's premature. Let's see what this says, and we cannot be spending any more council money at this moment in time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Shaw. Oh, sorry, Councillor Sperry. Would you
Thank
like
you,
to
Chairman. Can I
reply?
just clarify, £45,000 has been allocated for 3 potential consultations. It works out about £15,000 a time. So if the other 2 were not needed, we would not be spending £45,000.
I'm going to take Councillor Shaw, then Steptoe, Stanley and Councillor FD in that order, and I think we've given their time. Mrs. Shaw.
Thank you. I'm surprised that the other Essex County councillors have not had sight of this email. I'm looking at Councillor Steptoe, he's as bemused as I am. So in that fact, I don't think this should be the email that Councillor Eaves has mentioned that Councillor Hoy has had should even be discussed tonight because no other member has seen it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Yes, please.
I apologise, Chairman. I should have waited for the microphone. I just wanted to clarify that I also made these remarks under page 8.3.2, paragraph 3.2 of the report, which says that the Council was planning to commission an infrastructure delivery plan, viability assessment and other evidence. So that is basically saying the same thing as the email I had from Essex County Council.
Thank you, Councillor.
Doesn't say anything different.
Councillor Steptoe.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to comment that at county level we are looking at and working with other councils on the A127 task force. That is yet to report. And just to, for me to really correct Councillor Hoy, but the portfolio holder for infrastructure is Councillor Leslie Wagland, not Councillor Lee Scott.
Thank you. Councillor Steptoe. Councillor Stanley. Thank you. Councillor Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman. Just like to ask Councillor Spearing if any communications like this from Essex County Council, that he should be aware of this communication, and before we actually send out the leaflets, should we be sending out any leaflets to the residents, that this is clarified with him before anything else happens. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stanley. Councillor Sperrin, would
Thank
you
you,
like
Chairman. I'm not a county councillor, so I don't expect to have been notified. Obviously, as some of our own county councillors haven't been notified, I don't know why I should be put on their shopping list. With all these comments that have been made, I do have great concerns that here we are yet again trying to push our local plan forward, and yet we keep getting opportunities thrown at us as to why we shouldn't keep moving the thing forward. If the world changes and other issues come up, then we will have to address them. And when we come to our next meeting, and when we come back to you again, we may well have had to have reviewed our ideas. But I think, as Mr. Goodman would tell you, this is a changing cycle all the time. We have to go with what's placed in front of us at the time and make our decision on the information. For all we know, the review from county may never get off the ground, it may disappear. We've all been down this road a number of times before, and I would go back to members and say, we've got these resolutions for you, and I would suggest that we progress with this, and if subsequently down the road we have to change or review our operation or our presentation to you, then that's what we will do as and when it's appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sperrin. Final question, Councillor FD.
Thank you, Mrs. Chairman. I've got one question and a couple of observations. As David said, the local plan will surely be looked at again after it's finished, and anything new will come into it. Anything new also that comes up will go before the development committee at the time when it goes in, so we can question and look at it then. And again, how long will highways report take if it ever comes to fruition? And the actual question was, if the council resolves for this report, when will the consultation start, the 6-week consultation start?
I will defer to Mr. Goodman over the back there. How long will it take us, Mr. Goodman, to get the consultation out? Next week, there we are. And it will be going out to all residents, and it will be delivered to all properties. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sperrin. Councillor Ward, as the portfolio holder, do you need to...
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I have to echo Councillor Sperring's thoughts and views. I think this is a very, very important proposal for us to get our plan on the road and on the way. And I do appreciate the comments that Councillor Hoy made, specifically to point 3.2, which is very, very important, because what it does indicate is we will be taking into consideration new evidential documents that are brought forward. And part of that is the transport and the transportation assessment that highways are going to do. So we obviously will need to be looking at putting this consultation out as it stands with the evidential documents enclosed. But as new evidence comes to light, as we progress, we will take that evidence on board and use it in regards to how we develop our proposals on the various sites, and do they work or not. And I think that's a very, very important factor that I think we all need to take into consideration. And I just wondered where Councillor Sperring has put in motions 1, 2 and 3, is the fourth motion also included? Will we make sure that that is on there, and will we be taking all of them as one motion? That's another question. Thank you. And I fully support the motions, again, as I said, that Councillor Sperring put forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ward. Members, are you happy to vote these recommendations en bloc? Sorry. Councillor Sperring, would you like to put the recommendation forward?
I'll read them out again. This is in relation to the Spatial Options Regulation 18 consultation paper. That the Spatial Options consultation document set out in Appendix 1A be consulted for a period of 6 weeks.
Councillor Sperring.
Councillor Sperring, we're just, you've moved recommendation 4. If you could just read recommendation 4.
What the
so
what the
members
motion?
can vote on that.
The motion. Okay. Thank you. Sorry if I misunderstood what you wanted. That 45,000 be allocated from earmarked reserves to cover the costs of sending out a consultation leaflet to all households within the district on the spatial options consultation paper, and as necessary consultation leaflets for potentially up to 2 further significant local plan consultation papers. That was the motion, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ward? Okay, so we're going to put that motion to the members. Are you happy to vote with these recommendations en bloc?
Sorry, members, if I may, Chairman. Thank
Yes,
you.
certainly.
Members, you've heard Councillor Sperring put forward this recommendation. Can we take, we would need to take a vote on it for it to be accepted as part of the 4 recommendations at the end of this report. So, Chairman, if we may, can we take a members,
vote?
Yeah, if you could raise your hands for. Yeah.
4.
On
Item
recommendation 4 that Councillor Sperring's just read out. Thank you, members. Can I have your hands for against? Thank you, members. Any abstentions?
Thank you, members. That's 29 for, none against, and 3 abstentions. That motion is carried.
So, Chairman, thank you. That recommendation 4 put forward by Councillor Sperring is accepted. So, Chairman, you now have 3 recommendations set out at paragraph 1.7 on pages 8.31 and 8.32 of the report, plus the recommendation 4 you members have just voted on. Councillor Sperring, if you'd like to read out all 4. Thank you. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. The first one, Chairman, is in relation to the spatial options regulation 18 consultation paper. It's proposed that Council resolves that the special options consultation document set out in Appendix 1A be consulted for a period of 6 weeks, that this consultation is carried out in accordance with the consultation strategy set out at Appendix 1C. And item number 3 on that the authority be delegated to Assistant Director, Place and Environment in consultation with the portfolio holder for strategic planning to make minor textual and cosmetic changes to the consultation document to ensure it is factually accurate and accessible at the time of consultation. The second resolution resolves that the Council, this is in relation to the Statement of Community Involvement, that the Statement of Community Involvement 2021 review at Appendix 2A be consulted for a period of 6 weeks. And item number 3 is the Local Development Scheme 2021-23. Sorry, Chairman. That the Local Plan Development Scheme 2023 set out in Appendix 3A be adopted and published on the Council's website. And then, of course, Chairman, the motion that has already been agreed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Sperring. So, members, are we happy to vote en bloc on this? How many do we have? Can you raise your hands if they're voting separately, please? No? Okay, thank you. So we'll go back to...
Sorry, Councillor Hoyt, I missed that completely. What was that?
Separate. Separately.
Separately. You're going to have to...
Okay. Item 1, that the spatial options consultation document set out at Appendix 1A be consulted on for a period of 6 weeks. Those members for, please raise your hand. Okay, put your hands down, please, members. Those members against? And those members abstaining, please put your hand down, thank you. Those abstaining? Members, we have 26 for, 5 against and 1 abstain. That motion is carried. Item 2, that this consultation is carried out in accordance with the consultation strategy set out at Appendix 1C. Members, those that are voting for, please raise your hand.
Chairman, I think it should we've done that. It should be in relation, I think, Chairman, to the statement of community involvement. I believe we've done the first one. This is the statement of community involvement 2021 review at Appendix 2A. Be consulted for a period of 6 weeks. 2.4.
Sorry, Councillor Sperrin, we're still on page 8.3.
Well, you're taking all 3 of them individually.
Yes, you're taking them
Okay.
individually.
Okay. Sorry, Chairman.
So that was item 2. The consultation is carried out in accordance with the consultation strategy set out at Appendix 1C. So please raise your hands. 4. Please lower your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. And those in abstention, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands. Thank you. That is, members, that is 25 for, none against, and 8 abstentions. That is carried. Thank you. Number 3, that the authority be delegated to the Assistant Director, Place and Environment in consultation with the portfolio holder for strategic planning to make minor textual and cosmetic changes to the consultation document to ensure it is factually accurate and accessible at the time of consultation. Those that are for, please raise your hand. Please lower your hands. Those against? Abstentions, please raise your hands. Thank you, members. Please lower your hands. There are 25 for, none against, and 7 abstentions. That is carried, members. Number 4, that £45,000 be allocated from earmarked reserves to cover the costs of sending out a consultation leaflet to all households within the district on the spatial options consultation paper, and as necessary consultation leaflets for potentially up to 2 further significant local plan consultation papers. Members, can I ask you to raise your hands for? Thank you, members. You may lower your hands. Those against? Thank you, members. And those abstentions, please raise your hands. That is 4 is 31, against is 1, and 1 abstention. Members, that is carried. Statement of Community Involvement 2021 Review. Members, I will ask the Chairman of the Planning Policy Committee, Councillor Sperrin, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chairman. I think we've pretty much done some of these items to death already, members, but it comes under the Statement of Community Involvement. It's a proposal that Council resolves that the Statement of Community Involvement 2021 review at Appendix 2A be consulted for a period of 6 weeks. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Ward, thank you. Are there any questions? Okay, we'll go to the vote. Members, those that are for, please raise your hand. Members, please lower your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. And any abstentions, please raise your hands. Thank you, members. You can lower your hand. Members, that is 32 for, none against, and 1 abstention. Thank you. That motion is carried. The Local Development Scheme 21 to 23. Members, I will ask the Chairman of the Planning Policy Committee, Councillor Sperrin, to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I think this is probably the least contentious item that we've been through this evening, and it proposed that the Council resolves that the Local Development Scheme 2021 to 23 set out in Appendix 3A be adopted and published on the Council's website. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Ward, thank you. Members, Can those in favour please raise their hand? Oh, sorry. Do you have any questions first, please? Put your hand down. No questions, so please raise your hands. Any for? Please lower your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. And any abstention, please raise your hands. Please lower your hands, thank you. There are 27 for, none against and 6 abstentions. That motion is carried. Thank you. Agenda item 9, report on urgent decisions. This is just for noting, members. I will assume that you agree unless anyone raises their hands. That's noted, members. Agenda item 10, report of the leader on the work of the executive. Councillor Wootton.
Madam Chairman, thank you very much indeed. The Leaders' Update is set out on pages 10.1 and 10.2, and I have actually asked if it's possible for the Leaders' Report to be circulated in future agendas. It sets out the salient points of business in respect of 3 executive meetings held on the 3rd of March, 14th of April and 10th of June. Minutes of the meetings have been already distributed and set out those items in more detail. And in addition, there are the details of 6 portfolio holder decisions which have also been taken. Now that concludes my abridged report, but members, I accept it wasn't circulated in the agenda pack. Does anyone want to listen to my voice anymore while I read out the full report? Madam Chairman, I will leave that decision to you for members to report back to you.
Thank you, Councillor Wootton. Are there any members that would like Councillor Hoy? Councillor Hoy. Oh, please sit down, Councillor Wootton. I think there's a question.
Thank you, Chairman. It's obviously a question to this report, but I have spoken to Councillor FD immediately prior to this meeting on this. But I think it's important that it's brought up in the meeting as well. So I don't know if Councillor Wootton wants to answer the question or Councillor FD, but I'll ask the question first. It's a bit of a statement and a question. In the report, you refer to that there's an agreement that free off-street car parking be provided for up to 30 NHS volunteers deployed at the COVID-19 vaccination centres across Rochford District. It's really 2 questions. There's been a bit of posting on Facebook today concerning NHS workers and or volunteers who are having to pay for parking at the moment. So really the 2 questions are, there are 30 parking passes for 30 volunteers. Is that enough, is the first question. The second question is that the comments were around the actual NHS workers paying to park. Now, I did check our website today, and the website is still saying that NHS workers and carers on official business can still park for free in our car parks. I understand from Councillor FD that may be outdated and should be updated. But I think there's a little bit of contention around this, that people feel that NHS workers should not have to pay if they're doing work at the vaccination centres. They're the two questions. I don't know who wants to answer that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy.
Madam Chairman, with your agreement, I will defer to Councillor FD as portfolio
Thank you.
holder.
Councillor FD.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy, for your question. Just for clarification, NHS workers at these vaccination centres are being paid to be there. So, with the government relaxing the car parking passes yesterday, so it's no longer a government directive, we took the decision to make car parking passes available to volunteers who don't get paid for working there. I don't see someone who doesn't get paid for working there should have to fork out to park to help. And we've consulted with local surgeries and practice managers, and 30 seems to be enough at the moment. We will, of course, keep that under review. If we need to have more, we will look into that then. I hope that answers your question.
Sorry, and the website being updated?
I spoke to Matt earlier after you asked me that question, and I think he's sorting that out. It's done, so that's going to be updated. But of course, if anybody got a ticket yesterday and our website wasn't updated, we will look at that.
Thank you, Councillor FD. Councillor Newport, and then Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chair. In regards to the marketing of the leasehold opportunity of the former Crown Hill Public Convenience, could the executive please tell me how many expressions of interest there has been to date on that marketing, and for what term it will be marketed? Will it be 1 year, 2 years, 3 years? How long before a decision on its permanent future is decided, please?
Thank you, Councillor Newport. Councillor Wotton.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Newport, you possibly extend the limits a little bit to more than my information that I have at hand tonight, but I will ensure that you receive a written reply to that.
Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Councillor Eaves.
Thank you, Chair. Can I say thank you to Councillor Wotton, because one of the things that I was going to ask was that we get this notification of the update from the leader before the meeting, because there are a number of items in here that we would really like to question that we could have actually dealt with outside of the meeting, rather than take up the time in the council here. But thank you for doing that. There is a concern certainly in my group, where the update on the asset delivery programme is at the moment. We have raised a number of questions on notice and motions on notice that have been refused. The peer review did castigate the opposition parties for not using motions on notice and questions on notice, and when we do, we are finding that they are being blocked. Now, we are being given reasons for this, and I understand that there are meetings coming up for this, but in this particular case, we are rather concerned, and I'd like it to go on record that we're rather concerned that the reasons for these questions and motions on notice being refused has strayed into the political arena rather than the operational. But that I just bring that as a noted. Following on from James's point about
hold on, I've got a point of order here.
Sorry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I think we really have, I think Councillor Eaves is rather pushing his luck. This is a line item which talks about noting an executive, and I admire his creative approach in trying to open up a debate on the asset delivery programme, but that's really not what we're debating tonight, Madam Chairman. I will leave it to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Eaves. We'll move on to the item of being noted. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Moving on to the issue of the old public convenience on Crown Hill. I just wondered if you could throw light on why it's taken so long to get it to this stage. It's been a number of years that this building has actually remained empty, and it's an asset that we haven't been drawing on that we could have in the meantime. Wonder if we had an answer to that. Thank you,
Thank
Chair.
you, Councillor Reeves. Councillor Wharton?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Crown Hill toilets in Rayleigh. I will ensure a written answer which is fuller than the one I'm going to give you now, but I believe that the opportunity to market those toilets at the start of the pandemic was much more favourable than it is currently now. I don't think there has been a huge amount of interest at the valuation that was put on it at the start, but I will ensure that a more comprehensive answer is sent to you in that respect. Thank you.
You are.
Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Is that noted, members? Thank you. Agenda item 11, motions on notice. Members, there are none. Okay, members, the time is moving on and it's 9:20 and we've had a couple of hours so far. We need to, I think as Chair, I'd like to move a motion without notice according to the Council's procedure, Rule 14, that to extend this meeting beyond the 2.5 hours for as long as practical in order to complete the business. Can I have a seconder, please? Councillor Gray. Agreed, members? Thank you. Sorry? We can take a vote. Those in favour, please raise your hands. Okay, members, you may lower your hands. Those against? Please lower your hands, and those abstaining, please raise your hands. Thank you, members. That's 25 for, 4 against, and no abstentions. Members, we will now take a comfort break for 10 minutes. And we will return at 9:30. Thank you.
And that's item 12, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that I thought we'd
Get it out, yeah.
Thank you, members.
Thank you, members. We will now move on to agenda item 12, CCTV Working Group. Councillor Williams, will you introduce the report of the CCTV Working Group, please? 1 minute, we'll get you a mic.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Madam Chairman and members. The purpose of this report is simply to update members on the workings of the CCTV Working Group, also to endorse the use of the Community Safety Fund to provide for capital funding in support of CCTV and other safety initiatives should the parishes or town councils wish to take advantage of. Take advantage of this funding that the administration has made available. I therefore propose that this council resolves to note the work undertaken by the CCTV working group. Secondly, to endorse the use of the Community Safety Fund to provide for capital funding in support of CCTV and other community safety initiatives. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Do we have any questions then? Oh, sorry, I need a seconder. Yeah, thank you, Councillor FD. Questions? I can see Councillor Wilkinson.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to Councillor Williams, and I have got a couple of points to make in relation to the report, and it's unfair of me to throw these questions at Councillor Williams because I already know he doesn't know the answers because he and I have spoken on the phone about it. There are a couple of concerns I have with the report. The first is paragraph 6.1 of the report talks about parish implications. I don't know where that's come from. Councillor Williams doesn't know where that's come from. We discussed in the working group, which I've been a member of since the start, because obviously it was my motion that brought this to full council, we've discussed unmetered power supply, we've discussed GDPR, we've discussed the issues. Never once have we ever discussed those responsibilities falling on the parish councils, ever. So I don't know why that's in the report, and I intend to find out why that's in the report. My concern is that it's now causing concerns for the two parish councils that they, quite understandably, won't want to support it. I want that on record, please, the fact that that was not ever discussed in the working group and the report is inaccurate in that regard. However, CCTV is very important to most people. I accept it's not important to everybody. I accept there is a political element that don't want it. However, I have had contact from a number of businesses with regards to it, all of whom are in support. The entire... We're talking about CCTV report. We're talking about the CCTV report, Chairman, which I'm referring to.
Councillor FD, what's your point of order?
Rayleigh have received the report, Chairman. I don't know what Councillor FD is referring to.
I'm just trying to... This is not about actual the cameras and businesses wanting the cameras and stuff like that. This is about freeing up the money to actually, for the town council and for the parish to actually make a decision.
Yeah, Chairman, if I may, there are two parts to this. The first is to note the report. I am commenting on the report. And the second I will come to in a second, if I may. But it's important, if we're noting the report, that I point out the inaccuracies of the report.
Yes, which you've done.
Yes, which I've done. Yes, thank you.
Then you go on to say about you've been in touch with local businesses and local businesses have been in touch with you about CCTV.
Chairman, perhaps if I speak out of turn, then correct me. But if I'm not, then perhaps the interruptions could stop.
Can we just let Councillor Wilkinson finish his point, please?
Thank you very much. So this is supported by everybody, and I do endorse the use of the Community Safety Fund for it, and I will support that. However, and this is a however, I have grave concerns with regards to the wording of the motion because it's too bland.
Councillor Wilkinson, I'm sorry to interrupt, but it isn't a motion. This point
There is a motion, Chairman. I wish to move an amendment to that motion.
This is for noting.
No, the second part's the motion, I believe, Chairman. I may be wrong.
Yes,
I stand
that
corrected.
is, yes. Okay, so for the point 2 then.
Yes. If I can finish, please. Right, thank you. So, I wish to make an amendment, if I may, to the second part of the motion, which is just the second part, to endorse the use of the Community Safety Fund to provide for capital funding in support of CCTV and other community safety initiatives, which I have no issue with, which is what it says. However, there is no control, there is no governance attached to this, there is nothing. So therefore, I would like to add, each community safety initiative application will need to be assessed against a set criteria by all 3 ward members for the ward in which the initiative is located, together with the portfolio holder for community before funding is allocated. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Do you have a seconder, Councillor Councillor Law. Lawman. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Your points are noted and made well. As far as I'm aware, the report has not yet been received by Rayleigh Town Council. I've just been informed they've not received the report. It will be an updated report. It would be unfair at the moment to put that amendment forward, in as much that you would then possibly put town council against parish council, as one approval or rejection would affect the other. So I think as it is at the moment, it should go forward as originally proposed. Thank you.
Councillor Wotton. Sorry, Councillor Wotton.
Thank you very much indeed, Madam Chairman. I attended the last meeting of the CCTV working group, and there was enthusiasm to make sure that it appeared on the agenda tonight. And I made a call in that meeting, and I'm grateful to officers for putting it on the agenda tonight. It becomes a bit of a chicken and egg situation, in the sense of you don't really know whether or not you're going to get the money until you actually get the money, and you know what comes first, the offer or the money. I am particularly proud of the fact that this administration, in a time of financial difficulty through COVID pressures, was in a position to actually continue to invest in the community in a range of activities. And I'm particularly proud of the fact that we were able to set aside £100,000 for community initiatives, including CCTV. And I think that is where we ought to major on this report. But I do accept from Councillor Wilkinson that in some haste, I believe, to get it on the agenda tonight, I do not believe it has been totally thought through what role this authority will take versus the parish or the town council in respect of the actual nuts and bolts of the implementation of the scheme. So I do accept there is more work to be done. But what Councillor Wilkinson has to accept with respect is the fact that some of the activities, in terms of the ongoing management of any CCTV programme, will be down to GDPR and the need for licence registration with the body that is actually responsible for the ongoing management. So the report tonight really talks about the provision of finance. It doesn't go into the fine detail of the actual operation of how CCTV works or will work. And I would just urge members to focus on the Community Safety Fund, of which this administration is proud. Thank you, Madam Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Wotton. Councillor Hoy, do you have a question?
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. It's not a question, but we are debating a motion which is being proposed and seconded, as I understand it. I entirely understand Councillor Wilkinson's comments about it. I've got concerns around the report, and I think Councillor Wotton probably hinted at my concerns as well, that I think it's probably, this report has probably been brought here prematurely, I think. I'm a bit concerned that there's £100,000 in a community safety fund, but I can't see how it's being controlled, how you apply for it. Any more detail upon, it says £2,500 for community safety initiatives. I've got no idea what that means, to be honest. I'm not sure what the roles of Rayleigh Town Council and Rochester Parish Council are here. If both RTC and RPC accept the proposals, there's a total capital expenditure, with remaining monies being available for grant for other parishes within the financial year. So it's like we voted for something for Rayleigh Town Council and Rayleigh Parish Council, but we've sort of forgotten about other parishes. I know Holbridge has got quite an extensive amount of CCTV, which they do use. They might want to update, but they've been left out. They may have been given the opportunity, but there's been an election since then. So I will support the amendment, because I think it gives some control around how the money's being spent and how it's being applied for, and if it's being applied in the right place. But I'm still struggling to really support it overall, because I just think it's premature.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. We'll go to Councillor Williams and then we'll go to the amendment.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chairman. No parishes have been left out. All parishes, and I repeat, all parishes will be able to claim up to £2,500 in match funding. Right, so this is in its very early stages. The governance has yet to be decided. So I fully expect, I hope, certainly hope that this recommendation to enable funding for this project will go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Wilkinson, do you need to speak on the amendment?
Chairman, thank you for letting me come back before this is put to the vote. Just to clarify a couple of points that are made, I do understand, and I think there's been some confusion in the points that I was trying to make. I am not criticising the administration for putting aside £100,000. In fact, I voted for it. I supported the budget. So I'm not criticising them in any way, shape or form. I'm simply saying that in this motion that we're asking to be voted on tonight, there's no governance involved, and that's what I was asking for. And my comments were more noting about the CCTV or the paragraph 6.1. And I'm surprised, although obviously I don't disbelieve Councillor Williams, but I'm surprised because he will remember, of course, at the meeting that we were at Wednesday, that Councillor Lumley, as chair of the Community Safety Group on the Town Council, was quoting from the report. So I am surprised at the saying that the parishes don't have it, but I'll obviously take his word for that, but thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Sorry, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Williams, do you need to come back?
Yeah, thank you. I think the report that Councillor Lumley was referring to was the one made in, I think, 2020, I believe. But I have been assured this evening that Rayleigh Town Council has not yet received the report. So it would really be unfair on Rochester Parish Council at the moment if we were to make a decision on that, on those grounds. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wilkinson. Councillor Lawman, do you have any points as the seconder?
Thank you, Chairman. Directly, no, but listening to the discussion, and I'm not involved in the CCTV group or anything like this, but it does concern me that when we talk about the parishes, if we don't get the wording correct, and it's misleading here to me because it talks about implications, which is, I think, what we've been talking about here. That's how I understand it. I mean, item 6, it talks about parish implications, but I've got another half here talking about finances. So why are we talking about implications? It's a little bit confusing, this document, and I do see where people are coming from, but if we're going to be asking all the parishes to take part, we have to be mindful of their limitations, and we don't want to exclude people because we can't get it right in the first place. And I do agree, I think this is premature, and I'd like to see this deferred probably to the next meeting so that the relevant officers, members, can get together and resolve the questions, and we can have another look at it. But at the moment, it seems a little bit unstable. That's my view.
Thank you, Councillor Lawman. Councillor Wilkinson, would you like to read out your amendment, please?
Okay, Chairman, the amendment is for number 2 only, to endorse the use of the to endorse the use of the Community Safety Fund to provide for capital funding and support of CCTV and other community safety initiatives. Each community safety initiative application will need to be assessed against a set criteria by all 3 ward members for the ward in which the initiative is located, together with the portfolio holder for community before funding is allocated.
Okay, members, we will vote on this amendment. If you can raise your hand if you are for the amendment. please lower your hands. Members that are voting against? Please lower your hands. Any abstentions? Please raise your hand. Members, that is 10 for, 22, 21 against, and 2 abstentions. Unfortunately, that amendment is not carried. So we're now going back to the original. Councillor Hoy, do you have a question?
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just speaking to the original motion now. I won't echo what I've said again. I've got concerns about this. I just draw your attention to paragraph 2.7 on page 12.1. In the event that the proposals are not progressed by either Raleigh Town Council or Rochford Parish Council, any unspent monies from the Community Safety Fund will revert to the general fund. Now, I'm reading that as though if they don't take part, there is no Community Safety Fund of £100,000. I just want to know if I'm correct in my interpretation. I think if I'm interpreting it like that, other people could interpret it the same way as well. And that's my concern, that, as has been said, if Raleigh Town Council haven't seen this, we're approving something they've not seen. There may not be a fund. We're approving it before we even know that it's going to work. And that's my real concern. If there is £100,000 and it's available to other parishes in part £2,500 each, then that's quite good. But if it's only dependent on the agreement of Raleigh Town Council and Rochford Parish Council agreeing to this scheme overall, then I can't support it. I've got real difficulties with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hoy. Councillor Williams.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. It's not dependent on the fact that Rochford District or Rochford Parish or Rochford or Raleigh Town Council take up this offer. The money will be there if we agree to the use of this funding this evening. If the parishes want it, that's purely, they have to make an application. The governance share is to be decided, but if they want it, the money will be there for the parishes, regardless of whether Town Council or Parish Council takes up the offer for CCTV. Thank you.
Are there any more questions? Councillor McPherson.
Sorry, Chairman. It's literally just on the back of what Councillor Hoy just mentioned. When it says fund, the safety fund will revert to the general fund, is that our Rochford District Council general fund, or is that the CSP general fund? So will the money that isn't used go back into community safety initiatives?
Thank you, Councillor McPherson. Councillor Williams, are you able to answer that?
Thank you, Chairman. I have to say I don't know the answer to that. Perhaps I could ask Officer Louisa Moss to answer that one.
Sorry, Louisa Moss.
Yeah, Chair, it will go back to the Council's general fund, not the community safety budget.
Thank you. We will now move on to the vote. So those that are for this motion, please raise your hands. So members, this is for noting on number 1 and for voting on the second motion.
Sorry, Chairman, if I may.
Go on,
Can
sorry.
I assist? Members, there were no more questions, so... sorry, please lower your hands. Members, there were no more questions, so the Chairman has taken it to a vote. Members, there are 2 recommendations set out in paragraph 8.1 of the report on pages 12.12 and 12.3. Members, the first recommendation is to note the work undertaken by the CCTV working group. Members, is that noted?
And then we'll move on to where we're... Yeah, and if you could vote those in favour for, please, raise your hands. Please lower your hands. Those against, please raise your hands. And please lower your hands. Any abstentions? Can you keep your hands raised, please? Paul? Okay, members, please lower your hand. There are 23 for, 3 against and 7 abstentions. That is carried, members. And that concludes the business for this evening at 9:55. Thank you for attending.
Members, please rise whilst the chairman and the acting MD retire.